I apologize. I am running a little bit behind. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a little after 3:30, so we'll begin our Solid Waste Authority meeting. This is the regular session scheduled for today. I'll call the meeting to order. Let's see. We're not sure if we need a closed session today or not, but do you know yet? At the end, okay. All right, so would the clerk please call the roll?
Wrong button, sorry about that. Will you be acting as chair today?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Holly?
Here.
Excuse me. Commissioner Murray?
Here.
Commissioner McClure?
Here.
Commissioner Salong?
Here.
Commissioner Finnegan? Here. Commissioner McNamer?
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan? Here. Commissioner Westfall?
Here.
Commissioner Hemmingson?
Here.
Chair Ania.
Here. This is public comment time. Any member of the public may address the Solid Waste Management Authority on any matter on or off the agenda. After receiving recognition from the chair, please give your name and address for the record. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment? Yes.
My name is Richard Miles, and I live in Martha's district, and I'm a city resident, so I don't know what that qualifies me for. I would hope this board, both the city representatives and the county representative, would look at their ordinances. And I want to give you an example of why I think you need to look at these ordinances. In my county ordinance, there's nothing that says that I can't leave my trash cans provided by Mr. Sparrow in my front yard. And that's where they stay right now, is in my front yard. The city ordinance says they can't be in my front yard because they're unsightly and they're blight. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that just doesn't make sense. Now, I asked our director why our recommendations from the Solid Waste Task Force weren't put on the agenda. And he said the majority of you think our current ordinances are fine and dandy. Well, well, you didn't put it that way, but that's the way I interpret it. Well, maybe Kevin's a little right about some of them, but I definitely believe that when your county health officer just has almost as much power as the county blight officer, and our city blight officer, Eric Taylor, really doesn't have any tools, there's something wrong.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the report from the Solid Waste Task Force. Mary?
Good afternoon, Mary Wilson. And I have a bit of good news to start with. The meeting, yay, is that the 5-year task force report from 2010 is completed. And in our last meeting, we had talked about how the report was delinquent by 2.5 years and that it needed to be done immediately. And so what's happened in the meantime was I was a little confused because as my main duty again is this 5-year report, I had originally looked up my duties as chair and had gone to staff and had asked them, you know, we need to start working on this, and I'd gotten a reply that, no, it's completed, we don't have to worry about it, that there are other priorities of the board that what they would like to work on, we need to, it's not due till 2015. So a little confusion, this, when the tune kind of changed from the staff, that I wasn't doing my job, we need to get this report done, in fact, at the last meeting, I know that they wanted to take the, start doing the agenda again, and I did not have at that time, but I was able to go back and find an email that I did receive from staff stating that the report had been completed for 2010. As a matter of fact, when I was speaking with Ted about it, you know, they were ready to move on, and I just needed to know why I had been told that the report was done. And through the course of that, it was jogged his memory, and he was able to go back and looked at the file from the previous task force, which when he did, he found in there that the 2010 report had been completed, and also the JPA board had already approved it through the course of the, he found minutes for that as well. So that's the really good news. The part that was confusing, which again, when the state came in September of this year, that stating that it hadn't been yet turned in, and that was the deal. It was completed, but the mistake was made when it was not turned in. And so anyway, it just was a little problem that compounded, and it was just really hard for me to believe that Kevin and Ted, and then the 4 members on our task force as well that worked on this report, and as well as you know, members from the JPA, all forgot about it. So it was a confusing thing, and the part that I'm happy it's all straightened out right now, but there was a bit of time, we wasted several meetings on this, trying to go back and see if we needed to do the 2010 report. So that's kind of what's all been going on. So again, it's good that it's completed. It was a little bit confusing. Like I said, I think Supervisor McNamer or Supervisor Schlong thought that maybe it had been at one point, but then sure enough, it was found. So that's the good news. And so then that's off of our list of duties. And then I just wanted to go over that our new board, which was assembled in March, the JPA has directed staff to assist us in fulfilling our priorities, and it's just kind of been unfortunate and kind of apparent that the authority staff really hasn't been supportive and forthcoming in providing assistance necessary for the task force to complete its functions. And as chair, I feel in many areas, not all, they have intentionally hampered the mission and goals of the task force. And specifically, when information was needed related to ordinances, details, and state regulation requirements, they did not reply in a timely fashion, and it delayed our ability to get our job done. And at one point, I know I went back and I looked at the meeting, there were 6 people on this board that directed that, you know, we meet with them. And as chair, I requested a meeting and was told that they only had 30 minutes to meet with me. And my meeting went a little long, and so I was very surprised at the end of that meeting when the new task force member showed up, and then she was able to get an hour and a half of staff time when, again, I was trying to go over the ordinances, and they didn't have time for me.
Mary, can I ask a quick question? When you're referring to this meeting that lasted 30 minutes, when was this?
It would be probably 2 months ago.
Okay.
You had directed that the task force meet with staff to go over information.
Right. Staff and council.
Yes. So.
Okay. Thank you.
And I feel it's kind of a personal issue between staff and myself. You know, in the case of the 5-year staff review, I know, again, I was publicly chastised, you know, not only here at this meeting for not doing my job, but there were 2 other task force meetings where I didn't know where it was coming from when they said that, got to get onto this 5-year report. I had been told different information at the beginning, so it was, I was being led in a bit of a circle. And there's been other times when that staff has misrepresented some of the state requirements on several of the ordinances. Again, one example was the staff draft that was put before us for the mandatory commercial recycling program when an enforcement element was added in, and that was not required by the state. So it was, I felt, a misrepresentation of the state's position. And in order to promote the chosen position and ordinances by the Solid Waste Authority. So at that point, that's when we had gotten plans from other solid waste ordinances in the state, and we were able to compare that to those as well as the original law. And we came in here with the edited mandatory commercial recycling plan for Del Norte. Another example, I know that Jerry had directed that a PowerPoint presentation be given to the task force, and only 17 pages were shown to us, whereas the PowerPoint presentation was 24 pages when it came before the board. And so again, information was withheld from us. And in closing, I know staff has been willing to educate me, and I also have been going about on my own to confirm facts via original documents and laws. And to that end, I found inconsistencies with information provided by staff. And I've been misled by inaccurate information, and also found that information had been partial or excluded. And to me, the most unfortunate thing of all this is there's a lot of time that's been wasted. And I feel it's important that we get back to the priorities that the board has asked that we look into. And I just wanted to give this report today to help clarify, my perspective on the authority's job with regards to the task force. So, thanks.
Thank you, Mary. Do the commissioners have any comments?
I do.
Yes.
It's hard to respond to all of your comments because they're general statements. So I would, as a commissioner, if you wanted some of those issues to be dealt with, then it would be easier for me personally, I don't know about anybody else, to actually have the information you feel was withheld from you, specific examples and the inaccuracies you believe that you've found, and the misrepresented state information that you referred to?
Yeah, exactly. It was the meeting that the task force had in regards to, these are just examples, again, that we had in regards
and I don't
to
expect
the PowerPoint presentation.
Tell me right now.
We only got 17 pages where, again, it was a 24-page presentation for you, so we didn't get all of it. So that's one. And then the second one was in regards, that was another meeting about the mandatory commercial recycling plan for Del Norte County. And I believe I made a statement at that time, as well as I brought in the original draft document that had been presented by staff, which included portions on enforcement. And then they did revise the draft so that what came before you was, again, just what was required by the state. In the state law, AB 32, the Chesborough law. So those are 2 right there that I've brought forward in the past. And what was your third one?
I was just looking for
specifics. Yeah, I have some emails if you like any emails that I have. In fact, that's what really saved me, going back through some of my emails about that, the 5-year report that was already done for 2010 by the last task force. So
okay,
I'm happy that was done. That's a good thing. So if you need any backup documentation, I have that certainly. But it's just a report. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Any other commissioner comments? Any public comments? Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda, number 2, item 2. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, I apologize for
That's good.
coming in late here, but if this is the first time that this has been brought forward, I don't want the public to think that I, for one, and I hope there's some other commissioners here, find that it's okay that a report had been done that was mandated, apparently done on time, and staff forgot about it, and it wasn't filed for 2 years. That's not okay.
Any other comments?
Is staff supposed to file it, or does the task force file it?
I can answer that. So in 2010, we did go through the process of reviewing the 5-year review with the task force. Shortly after they completed that review, the task force essentially went on hiatus. And at that time, we were developing the service standards for the new collections franchise, which is a fairly intense process. And so the submittal of that report, which required some additional research regarding the changes in demographics and some paperwork, essentially got put on hold. And then when the new task force was convened, we established an entirely different set of files so that we could keep clear about what information had been passed to the new task force. When we received information from the Cal Recycle that they had not yet received the 2010 5-year review, I presume that was information was correct, and we started working on the 2010 5-year review. Mary Wilson found an email that I sent her in April saying that the 2010 review was complete, and she said, well, why would you tell me it was complete if it wasn't? And based on that, I started looking into the files and in fact found the 2010 review that was complete. So my sincere and heartfelt apologies for not submitting that on time. It has been, at least the task force portion has been submitted to Cal Recycle, and we will follow through with the remaining portions of that report within the month.
Thank you. Did you have a comment?
I just want to make sure, is there any sanction for filing the report late?
No, throughout this process, I've emphasized to all parties, and Cal Recycle has confirmed, they're interested in compliance, meaning they're mostly interested in are our recycling programs being implemented, and are they working? And do we have 15 years remaining disposal capacity? All those things have remained true, and in fact, that it justifies why we focused on the new service standards for the collection franchise, because that was rolling out a whole new set of recycling programs that previously didn't exist in the county. And so we were continuing to focus on making sure the programs were implemented rather than following the paperwork, and Cal Recycle supports that choice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners?
I guess I'd be along the same line as David, is if the thing was, because we were at the meeting where Solid Waste Task Force got chewed out for not being on, this is their priority they should be doing, and the fact it had already been done, it seems like there aren't that many reports. That's a pretty big report. It seems like it would be obvious it was done. I don't think it's appropriate to chew out the task force if the thing's already done.
I apologize to all parties for whom I misrepresented that the 2010 report was not done. It will be submitted shortly.
Staff is now going to those task force meetings, is that correct? Yes. Okay. All right, so that's what you...
Are we keeping minutes for those meetings? Are there minutes being taken and recorded and approved?
Yes.
Because I would like those to be included.
I think you have
And
those.
I have this round, but for any previous ones, or is it just now starting?
No, I believe that since this new task force has begun, we've included adopted minutes after they've been approved by the task force under this item. So
Okay.
I think you've gotten
And
all the
then
minutes.
I would suggest that maybe requests for information be made in writing, so people can clearly understand what's being requested, and that would be helpful for both sides, I think.
Did you have a comment, Mr. Miles, with the task force?
Sorry.
At the last meeting, we did, the task force, we had said, but what bothered me at the time that something should have been published in the newspaper. Also at that time, I had this thought. We are in the computer age. And if you go out to the office of this authority, a lot of their documents are still in file cabinets. And I personally find that shocking. I can understand because as a librarian and somebody who has a subspecialty in record management, I know that things can get lost in file cabinets. So my suggestion to this board, if there's any funds that ever comes available, I think the records out to the authority should be scanned, put in a computer. Any future documents that are generated by staff should be put in a computer.
Thank you. We'll talk about that for next budget year to see if we have any funds. Let's move on to the consent calendar. That's item number 2. Approval of minutes in the regular session, September 25th, and also approve budget transfers in the amount of $10,000 from the full-time payroll to temporary employees. Any comments from the commissioners? Move to approve.
Second?
I had one comment, and just the content of the minutes in my experience with controversial issues. One of the things that was pointed out to the city in the past is when you don't have very much content in your minutes, it's hard to follow, especially when a grand jury starts to poke around. So I felt like the minutes were very short and concise, but there wasn't any, they didn't really include any participation from the board. So I would just encourage a little more information to be included in the minutes.
Okay. All right. Would you take the, you have a motion and a second. Would you pull the vote, please?
Oops, sorry about that. Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Murray?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Shalong?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmingson?
Yes.
Commissioner Finnegan? Yes. Commissioner McNamer?
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
Commissioner Westfall?
Yes.
Chair Ania?
Yes. That's the end of the consent agenda. Let's go to item number 3, which is the director's report. Mr. Hendrick?
You have the 4 written reports on financial information, and I don't have anything to add to that. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Commissioner? Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Henderson.
I had a question about these, the unpaid charges, county free, and you list the different departments of the county. Are there departments within the city that have no charge?
No.
There aren't any.
The county road department and the cultural center get dumpsters.
Okay. And there's a charge for those?
No,
You
those
mean
are,
the city road department?
I'm sorry. The
City
city road
courtyard?
department and the cultural center get
Free dumpsters.
free dumpsters.
Yeah.
And there's, so that doesn't, but it doesn't show up anywhere?
Or special?
Well, it just looks like you're singling out the county, and maybe you are, I mean, and I guess that's fine, but it seems like there are services that go to the city and services that go to the county.
You're referring to the charge accounts,
Yeah,
and that's the report on county departments that bring in waste to the transfer station,
Okay.
and that's recorded like their charge accounts, but basically we pay that on the county's behalf.
okay. The other
Why-
one,
I'm just curious now, why isn't the city listed?
Because it's picked up by...
Well, if you look, there is a
Oh, I get it. Never
there's a
mind.
separate budget line under the budget report
Right.
that would reflect the
Yeah, never
costs on the
mind. I got
dumpsters.
it.
So that's, it's actually a line called city collections. If you look at the details on the September 30th financial report, you would see that we've spent through September $1,481 for city services.
The other question I had is in the authority revenue report, you're showing $30,000 that you've received $30,000 more than you've budgeted for through your service fees, but the franchise fees are down considerably.
Which page are you on, Jerry?
3.3.
Yeah, 3.3.
3.3.
And I'm curious, I mean, it seems to be that revenues are well down from last year, except for the month of September, I guess. But anyway, they seem to be down from last year a little bit. And yet the budget year money shows way over and the franchise shows considerable under. And I was just curious about the trend. Is that normal? Maybe it's more. I don't know. It just kind of stuck out. I was just, I guess, more of a comment than truly a question.
Any other comments about that?
Was that about that with the tsunami cleanup last year?
No, this is this fiscal year starting in July, so we're tracking the revenues at the transfer station and the franchise fees is the second sheet.
And the membership fee that we have a membership fee for $7,500. Is that more than one?
Yes.
Which is, where's the majority go? Is that the waste management?
The largest part of that fee is the membership for the Rural Counties Environmental Services JPA.
And I think I've asked that question before. Again, I was just going through it.
It's okay.
Wanted to refresh my mind. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other commissioner comment?
Just
Yes,
something
Mr.
in that same page, what I was wondering is, under source, isn't it 2010, or 2011, 12, and then the other one would be 12, 13?
Yes.
I'm just thinking.
Yeah, this was a carryover form from last year, so.
Yeah, I thought
Good
you
catch.
might want to change those headings, right?
We'll do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Rick.
Just thought.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Any public comment on the director's report? Sure. Okay, we will.
Might be the volume on it, too.
Mr. Miles, do you have a comment?
I want to thank Kelly Salong for asking, and Mr. Hemmingson for asking what's the difference between the county and the city on this revenue line. I'd like to point something out, because I've been aware of this for years. I want to know why the Chamber of Commerce gets free garbage service. Now, I can understand why the city would get garbage service when they rent out the cultural center for an event on the dumpster that this authority provides, but I find it very interesting the Chamber of Commerce gets their building free, their lights free, their water free, and their garbage free. It just amazes me, as I'm not talking as a task force member, I'm just talking as a city resident. I'd like to get something free once in a while.
Once in a while, you get a free lunch.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly, Richard, getting the building free and all that, that's an in-kind
Yeah.
donation that
Right.
they've paid for.
Right. He's asked that
ever.
before. We do it every year at our city budget, and we answer that
Right.
question. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, no, see no further comment. I don't think we have to accept the director's report, do we? Okay, the director's report's accepted. Next is the discussion on action items. Number 4 is landfill post-closure, and there's no agenda items, correct, Kevin?
Correct.
Number 5 is collections franchise, and there's no agenda items.
Correct.
Number 6 is the transfer station, and it's the discussion and possible action regarding the reorganization of Hambro Forest Products and potential changes to the transfer station operations. and the contract with the Hambro slash Solid Waste Solutions Group. Kevin, did you want to start?
Could I ask a question?
Sure. We have a
We don't
question.
have any backup for that at all? Oh, I don't have anything in my...
No.
We don't have anything in our binders?
No, no, that wasn't a mistake. We asked for something written from Hambro to provide for you, but they didn't have anything that they wanted to provide. In talking to the chair and the vice chair, seemed prudent to give the board an opportunity to maybe cut through some of the rumors, because there's a lot of rumors going around, and I know that you all want to know that our contract is solid. Background is that we have a transfer station operations contract with the Hambro Waste Solutions Group, which is a subsidiary corporation of Hambro Forest Products. And we have a contract directly with them, and all I can say is at this point they're meeting all the terms of their contract. But I know that there are questions, so.
And Mr. White is here. Come on, you can come on up if you like.
Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you. I'd like to acknowledge my understanding of this board's interest in the importance and the status of the Hambro Group of companies. We completely understand the importance of having the transfer station operations, transportation, and disposal of solid waste be done appropriately, efficiently, and with absolute confidence in the company assigned these tasks. It is crystal clear to us that this is a critical issue to this body as well as this community at large. It is our intention to provide the continuing exemplary performance we have provided over the last 8 years. I'd like to start by saying I wish this meeting was about a month from now. As today, I am not able to provide you with all the details you may wish to have, but will share with you what I can. I'd like to cover first historically a bit about the Hambro Group, an employee-owned group of companies. For those already aware of some of this information, I'd like to ask you to indulge me so that everyone can be on the same page. It may also give you a better overview. So quickly, historically, Hambro Forest Products was started in 1963 by Hambro brothers who saw an opportunity to utilize wood residuals that at the time were being burned in teepee burners, which were relics of an era less than maximization of our natural resources. Hambro Forest Products was one of the first companies to produce particle board in the United States, and the plant here in Crescent City was a dominant producer of flooring for the manufactured housing industry across the country. Snoozy Shavings was started in 1965 to haul chips and shavings for Hambro Forest Products. In order to properly service the customer base, management saw the need to get into finished product delivery as well. Shortly after this, the community realized that its landfill was having environmental problems and something needed to be done with the large volumes of fish and green waste being disposed there. If something was not done, the landfill would have a much shorter life than expected. Hambro management took on the task and began composting green waste into dirty fines and found a useful place for fish and shrimp processing waste. The fish waste was developed into an innovative liquid organic fish fertilizer, which took years to refine. Thus, in 1995, Eco-Nutrients was formed. A philosophy of culture of waste utilization, while not articulated, began to emerge, and a mission of utilizing today's waste for tomorrow's products was adopted. Hambro's management saw the landfill reaching its capacity limits. They had been in the recycling business since 1964. When discussions were heard of a transfer station, they recognized the fit, both from the furtherance of their mission, but also as a possibility to reduce their freight costs for inbound raw materials coming from the Medford area. Thus, in 2003, we bid on and were awarded the contract for the operation of the transfer station, forming Hambro WSG. As the particle board market continued its growth pattern, 2 particle board plants became available, each of which brought expanding each of which we bought, expanding the group to now include Humboldt Flakeboard in Arcata, California, which was added in 2002, and Blue Ridge Panels in Lenore, North Carolina, which was added in 2007. In 2010, we saw an opportunity to expand our recycling operations and decided to start a new company in 2011 called Resource Recovery Solutions, whose goal was to generate revenue by increasing recycling in our local area. Under its umbrella, we added the Eco Store, metal recycling, and automobile dismantling. As we are all aware, in 2008, the economy went into severe prolonged recession. Housing starts, one of the major indicators of revenue generation for our particle board plants, fell by 70 to 75% of where they had been and continue to this day at those levels. Between 2005 and 2011, revenues for the group dropped by 58%. In 2005, the group's revenue from particle board operation constituted 77% of our total revenue, while in 2011 it dropped to 61%. Obviously, revenue from particle board operations will go to zero shortly. Thus, you can see that we needed to reinvent ourselves. When I took over in May of last year as CEO of the group, I was charged with just that task, to reinvent the organization. Due to the economic circumstances, I immediately began shutting down operations with the biggest losses and refining our accounting procedures in order to better recognize specific areas of profitability. Our first shutdown was the operated Humboldt Flakeboard Panels in Arcata, followed with the closing of particle board production here at the Hambro facility in Crescent City. That was followed by ceasing of particle board production in Blue Ridge facility in North Carolina. Thus, all particle board productions were ceased. When we looked forward at the economy and the state of the industry, it did not look promising given our capacities, our capabilities, and our locations. We then focused our energy on the generation of profits of the non-particle board producing companies while beginning to look to sell particle board operations to strategic buyers wanting to add particle board production to their operations, or to buyers that might purchase the plants for alternative uses such as wood pellet manufacturing. This brings us to present day. Today, we're in the final steps of selling the assets of the North Carolina facility and dissolving it as a corporation. We're also in the final stages of dissolving the Humboldt Flakeboard Corporation, the facility in Arcata, California. The equipment necessary for the production of particle board at Crescent City facility has been sold, and all equipment is almost removed. We have made the decision to entirely exit the particle board industry. We have looked into possibility of partnering or somehow utilizing a portion of the Crescent City plant for wood pellet production, but that does not look very promising other than for the potential for the export market. As stated before, our focus for the last 6 months has been on trying to maximize our efforts with our transportation company, Snoozy Shavings, our fish fertilizer company, Eco Nutrients, our recycling company, Resource Recovery Solutions, and of course, our garbage transfer operations, Hambro WSG. Snoozy Shavings has to change its focus from sourcing freight from other than within the Hambro Group companies to outside sources of freight, and this is involved in a very competitive industry. We have had some interest in the sale of Snoozy Shavings. Eco Nutrients has expanded its raw material supplier base and has increased its sales slightly. We have received some interest in the sale of this business as well. Resource Recovery Solutions has not generated the cash flow we anticipated it would. As a result of this, we have elected to exit the auto dismantling business and to either exit certain portions of the remaining business or to consolidate it under the Hambro WSG banner. Thus, Resource Recovery Solutions will soon be dissolved. We continue to strengthen our remaining operations through analyzing which of those operations or portions thereof are economically profitable and which fit within our present vision of our future. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we have not completely finished this process and are in the final stages of completing it. Until such time as those decisions are finalized and approved by the proper parties, this is our status. Just as we have, most all small business and governments have had a very difficult time the last 6 years. Over the past 50 years or so, the Hambro Group of companies has contributed significantly to this community. We estimate that just over the last 5 years, excluding any particle board operations, we have recycled over 18,000 tons of material, which converts to over 900 trucks, or about 180 trucks of recycled material going out of here a year. Additionally, we have provided jobs and opportunities to hundreds of our local people. We have provided millions of dollars in payroll, property taxes, and donations to this community. I want to assure this body that our management full intention is to include Hambro WSG in this newly reorganized entity. WSG clearly has the capacity to stand on its own. I am sure you have all heard various rumors. At this point, that is all they are. I can neither acknowledge nor deny anything other than the above, as nothing is etched in stone at this point. I will be more than happy to report back next month or sooner of any further developments. Once again, I want to assure you that it's management's intention, and the numbers reflect, that Hambro WSG is and will continue to be a viable and valuable portion of the reinvented Hambro Group of companies. We fully intend on operating it well into the future in the same successful manner that we have over the last 8 years. I'd like to summarize my message to the board with 4 points. Number one, the Hambro Group of companies for almost the last 50 years has been a large part of and contributed to this community and is determined to continue in that tradition. Number two, the Hambro Group of companies has, for the last 50 years, been focused on recycling and innovative ways to utilize waste products. It is our intent to continue that mission. Number three, the Hambro Group of companies is in the process and has not yet completed the reinventing of itself, which is due to significant changes in both the economy and shifts in markets. Number four, we have shown this community that our operation of the transfer station has led to a transfer station where people have stated this is one of the best run, cleanest, aesthetically pleasing facilities they have seen. Hambro WSG has been and will continue to be well run, and most importantly, it will be a part of the Hambro Group of companies as a core business.
Thank you, Mr. White.
You bet.
Commissioners have any questions of Mr. White?
I had and maybe I didn't hear it all, but what was the future of Snoozy and Eco-Nutrients?
I didn't state what the future is. What I said was that we are analyzing each company and its profitability and where we go with it.
Okay. Well, I know that you said, I was just jotting down notes, and recourse recovery, you're thinking about it's going to go away?
It is going away.
Is this all voluntary action?
It is voluntary.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments?
I just want to tell you that I appreciate you coming forward with your discussions that you're having internally, because I believe that you have done an excellent job at the transfer station.
Thank you, Marty.
And I believe that Hambro's has been historically much like a cat, and it seems to land on its feet, and I'm hoping that that's the direction that we're going to see you go in.
It's a very difficult position that we're in, but we're struggling through, and it's hard, but we will be here. I'm determined that we will be here, and we'll work through this thing, so it's just hard.
Sure. If I could just say one more,
Yes,
and I want to thank you, Wes, for keeping me informed personally, and I appreciate you coming forth so that that people who were asking me questions could get it from you, and not just me repeating what I heard you say. So I do appreciate you coming forth.
There are things underway where there will be more changes. You will hear about that, and I promise I'll come back next meeting and update you. Right now, I just can't comment on them. It would not be appropriate to do so.
And that's fine. We appreciate that.
All right?
Okay. Thank you very much. Did you have a question?
No, I appreciate Wes coming. I know you mentioned it to me before, and I just want to make sure we're not caught off guard on any of this stuff in terms of if there is a possibility you guys are going to restructure, and I know you're restructuring right now, and I know that that's all arduous process anyway, and obviously you're not going to be able to come to us and tell us until you have a little more concrete idea of what things are going to look like.
Right.
But yeah, I've got to answer some questions right now in terms of concerns about what happens if we don't have a hauler.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Okay.
You will have a hauler.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you, Wes.
You bet.
Any public comment on item 6.1? Yes.
As a member of the Solid Waste Task Force,
Yeah,
my
please
name is
identify yourself.
Richard Miles. As a member of the Solid Waste Task Force and a resident of this community, I'd like to say that for years, Ambrose has done an excellent job of serving this community. I have some concerns, though, and I'd like to express them to this board, and maybe when Wes comes back, he can come back and clarify some of my questions. This authority has to reach a magic goal that may be impossible, and that's zero waste. One of the elements of this 5-year plan that is a key element is composting. I believe that Mr. White, because he's a member of the Harbor Commission, knows the importance of finding a way to dispose of our crab waste. There's very little of the other fishing that actually creates enough waste anymore to do anything with. But I see in this community a need, and I hope Ambrose can find a solution to do this problem. We have a lot of food waste, green waste. I know how much the city generates. I know how much the county generates. I know how much the school generates. We need, for years, my city would take its tree waste, its green waste, its grass clippings out to Ambrose, and they would put it through their magic chipper, and that's what our dirty fines are made of. I would hope that some way they'll still make dirty fines. But it has to be markable. And the problem is, until we solve our transportation needs, it's hard for these people to move material out of the area. And that's something the Transportation Committee and Caltrans needs to solve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment?
no, it doesn't, you know, I'm glad that we're going to be updated, and I'm glad we are. This question is really directed to staff. Do we have a plan B? I mean, if we get to that point, is there a plan B on the hauling part?
We have a contract with Hambro Waste Solutions Group, and it's very detailed in the backup plans that we have.
Okay. Okay, I'll have to check the contract.
Okay.
It really depends on what they do.
Okay.
All right.
So this is going to stay on the next agenda then? Is it next or the 2 meetings out?
He said next month.
Oh, next month.
He said
Okay.
next month.
Okay.
So we'll put it back on the agenda for next month.
Can do.
Next, number 7 is General Solid Waste Authority matters. Are there any authority matters?
Closed session, I think.
Closed session.
We'll then adjourn then to our closed session for discussion and possible action regarding personnel evaluation. Thank you for attending.